Welcome to today's episode of the Nicole B Show, where the truth comes with no filter, no fear, and no allegiance to power. It's time to join me as we flip the script. Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of the Nicole B Show. Today I'm absolutely pleased and happy to be interviewing Jenni Trethowan. She is the founder of Baboon Matters. The plight of the Chacma baboons has always been very, very close to my heart, and it is something that I've always felt very strongly about. And that's why when she afforded me the opportunity to interview her, I was truly very pleased. So, Jenni, I think we'll get going. I want to know why you started Baboon Matters. If you can go through first the reason why you founded and started Baboon Matters, and then if you could detail the plight. What are the threats that the Chacma baboons in the Western Cape face at the moment?
Thank you. Okay, so before Baboon Matters started, in 1990, I was living in Kommetjie, and the entire troop of baboons in Kommetjie had been killed because in the 1990s, that was the method of dealing with problem animals. So my colleague Wally Peterson and I started an environmental group, the Kommetjie Environmental Awareness Group. Goal was simply to show that there were management options to make people more aware of baboons. And so we started off with just Wally and myself, and the little group did enormously well. Wally was a real visionary environmentalist, and we started alien clearing programs. We did all sorts of things. But in 2001, I realized that the reason we'd started KIRG was the baboons, but we'd become so involved with community projects and greening projects and all sorts of things. So I decided to start Baboon Matters, and that was just to purely and solely focus on the plight of the baboons, and not get sidetracked by all the other environmental issues. So Noel and Belinda Ashton and Lee Sachs and I started Baboon Matters, and our goal was to upskill the monitors so that they would be recognized as a skilled labor source, and we wanted them to have their own little company. And yeah, we had grand ideas of creating this wonderful work environment for the men and to keep the baboons safe and to create awareness and education for the residents. So that was back in 2001, and here I am today in 2025, and we are facing the exact same dilemmas with the recent announcement of the JTT to remove 5 troops of baboons.
Okay, but Jenni, why is this happening? Is this a sort of a political decision? What I'd like to ask as well is the conservation part of the Western Cape. Is that run by the Cape City officials? Is that Cape Town based? Or is that a national policy? Or is that particularly a Democratic Alliance policy that is particular purely to the Western Cape?
Well, you've actually hit straight on the nub of the issue, and the nub of the issue is that within Cape Town, we have the Table Mountain National Park. So we have a national park within a city. So therefore, you've got a jigsaw puzzle of decision makers. You've got the national park who's responsible for the park, and then the city, and then of course we've got Cape Nature, who's responsible for the regulations and running things. So we've got 3 different sets of regulations. However, what would be really useful for the baboons and for the residents is if each of the role players focused purely and solely on what they have to do. So, for example, Sandparks has to hold the baboons in trust for all of us. They are looking after wildlife in trust for the public. City of Cape Town is responsible for the nuisance factor. So the City of Cape Town is responsible for things like waste management, traffic calming, signage, education, regulations, enforcement of regulations, waste management regulations, for example. And Cape Nature is responsible, so they have given the baboons protected status on the Cape Peninsula, and they are responsible for ensuring that all the mitigation is in place and is enforced. So, and they're not working together. And this is the biggest problem. And it is such a problem that they have created this inertia that they've identified solutions as early as 2000, and they keep reiterating the need for the mitigation, but they just don't seem able to come to any agreement on who does what. And the sad thing is that if they each just did, if the city of Cape Town just focused on waste management, for example, you would see a huge improvement in the amount of times, a reduction in the amount of times baboons spend in urban areas. Yeah.
Do you think it's public pressure? Do you think that Cape Nature and the City Council are responding to public pressure? Are the public seeing baboons as a nuisance instead of playing their part in cleaning up and keeping the areas tidy and not feeding the baboons in order not to attract them into the urban areas? And also, just in that vein as well, do you think there is too much creep, urban creep into bird habitat? Are we actually partly to blame for what's happening to them?
Well, a very good question. So thank you. So without a shadow of a doubt, residents and communities are frustrated, and we understand why. When the baboons come into your area every single day, day in and day out, the tensions do rise. So the goal of the project should be to keep the baboons out of urban areas and in natural spaces. And if they did that, and when they do that, the tolerance level of residents dramatically increases. I don't agree with residents who take matters into their own hands by shooting at these animals, setting dogs on them,
No.
deliberately running them over with cars. But I do recognize that there is an intolerance factor that creeps up when the baboons are in town all day, every day. So I think that um, w- you know some residents are taking matters into their own hands, but I do think that if the authorities were far more proactive in enforcing bylaws. Waste management is just a huge critical area. There's just so much food available to the baboons in urban areas, navy dockyards, but not just in residential areas. In Kommetjie, there's a light industrial area where there's food production, and the baboons know that they can run across those busy roads and they can get huge rewards. So
Yeah.
everything needs to be dealt with in a way of saying, yes, that light industrial area park was never there when I first moved into Kommetjie, so it was definitely not there in the baboons' time. Now it is, and the baboons know that they can sleep there at night because it's warm, and they know that in the morning they can get easy food resources. So, without a shadow of doubt, we have crept more and more and more into their space, and without a shadow of a doubt, the city has not fulfilled its obligations. In 2009, Marianne Nieuwhout hosted an expert symposium at the city, and everybody was there, all the role players were there. And what Marianne Nieuwhout decided at the time is that all future development should have title deed restrictions, and obviously EIAs need to be done, and so on and so forth. That never went anywhere, and that's a great shame, because I think that if you look at all the developments that have gone up, there are no baboon-proof fences, there's still no waste management, and as I said, the light industrial area is just an absolute joke because of all the food that's available.
So the one proposal is to move them.
Yeah.
Now, I've got strong personal feelings on that, in that these baboons were there first. And if anybody should, and I know this is controversial, if anybody should be moving, it should be us, not them. Now, is there no way to try and get this policy, how can I say, framed in such a way that we can get people to live harmoniously with these baboons? Surely this is an asset for me. This is our heritage. This is the most beautiful part of living in South Africa, is having access to wildlife and that sort of thing. Why are we desperately trying to chase them away? And why are we trying to move them? Can we not start creating corridors, open up areas where you cannot build? Can the Cape not allocate areas that are no-go regions? You're not allowed to build there at all, and create corridors for these baboons to move through. Is that not a better option than packing them all up and moving them into sanctuaries?
Well, okay, so the Table Mountain National Park should be that corridor. If you look at where the
Right.
Table Mountain National Park runs through the city, it should be the corridor. The problem is the attractants outside the park that lure the baboons. And I use that word deliberately because the baboons are lured into urban areas by the easy food rewards. I mean,
Mm.
it's as simple as that. If you go through Simonstown, for example, and you see, and even in Constantia, the baboons know when it's bin day, and if they turn over a bin, it's astonishing how much food they find in the bins. Now, that
Very
in the
clever
first place is
animals. They're incredibly bright
very,
animals. And you really need to take that into account. Sorry for interrupting, Jenny, but I think it's
no,
something people don't realize. It's just how clever and how bright and how resourceful baboons are.
absolutely. And the thing is this is that if they know they're going to get rewards, they will go back to the same area again and again and again for rewards. So until we've done something to reduce those attractants, I mean, the analogy I always give is like if you put a plate of sweeties down for a party of 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds, a lovely plate of sweeties, and you said to them, don't touch those sweeties. It would be
Yeah.
impossible,
Mm.
before long they'd be reaching for the sweeties and so on. And so for the baboons, if they can get easy food rewards, so like for example, the other day I saw one of the juveniles had managed to procure out of somebody's dustbin a packet of bread rolls. Now, that packet of bread rolls is the whole day's nutritional value, not good nutrition, but it means that the baboon doesn't have to work hard in the natural area to get the food requirements. So obviously, if they can get easy rewards, they go back and again and again and again. And for me, the interesting thing is why are some properties raided continuously and others are not? And the ones who are not do not have baboon visitors are the ones where they have reduced the attractants or are managing their homes in such a way that baboons don't find it worthwhile going there. And that is it's very, very real. If we could get everybody on side. But I think that the interesting thing that my colleagues and I were discussing is that the more that the authorities are using pain aversion and the threat of killing the baboons, the more sympathy they are creating amongst some people for baboons. So people feel sorry for the baboons, they want to keep them safe, and are therefore making them feel safe in their gardens, in their homes, probably feeding them. I don't know, I can't say that for sure. But people don't want the baboons killed. And so they will try and keep them safe by maybe doing the wrong things for the baboons by keeping them in urban areas where they're knocked over by cars and attacked by dogs. When in actual fact, what we all want is the baboons to be living their best lives in the natural environment. And it's very frustrating that the authorities just simply, won't fulfill their obligations to make it so.
Could we look at a possible option of getting food into their natural habitat? And again, I know that this is going to sound quite controversial because you don't want to interfere with nature. You want the baboons foraging for their food in their natural habitat. Is there no way that because we have creeped into their habitat, because we've taken it over, that we start getting more food? And I'm not talking about junk food and people stuff out of their bins and that, but I'm
Mm.
talking about could there be a program of putting fruits out, etc., in their habitat to try and keep them there? Or is that too much? I'm also concerned cost-wise or whatever, is that too human resource intensive?
Well, the scientists are dreadfully against the idea of provisioning. I've been suggesting provisioning since 2008, and I'll tell you why. Because I think with because they're such clever animals and they've learned that they can get such high rewards in urban areas, you want to break that pattern and you want to get them back into the mountains and foraging naturally. So I wouldn't propose long-term provisioning, but if the city and if the JTT, the Joint Task Team, are serious about strategic fences, which there seems to be a lot of hopping and bopping on, but if they are serious about fences, my suggestion would be why don't we do short-term provisioning and break this pattern of the baboons going into urban areas every day, get them back up on the mountain, and then if we can break that pattern, they're already getting the food rewards. So we're moving the food rewards back to the mountain, get them foraging naturally again, give the authorities time to get their fences in place, get the rangers better trained, get the bylaws, being promulgated and prosecuted. And then if the baboons did attempt to go back and baboon-proof bins, after 24 years, there are still no baboon-proof bins. So I think that if we did do short-term provisioning, and it was the goal of short-term provisioning to break the pattern, to reset the baboons to being on the mountains, I think we should try it. And I'm astonished that there's such a hard no, because I think if we tried it, it would be very popular with people. People don't want the baboons to be killed. So I think they would support something like this. And I think that if they tried it and it worked, then it would solve the problem. If they tried it and it didn't work, they could tell the activists like me to shut up because they've tried it.
Well, this is it. I mean, if you don't try something, I don't think you have a right to dismiss it. And when you have a situation where your options are moving or killing our heritage, as far as I'm concerned, any other option should be on the table, because killing is no option as far as I'm concerned. These baboons, it is their habitat, it is their natural habitat, and we are the ones that should be working around them. I know it's a controversial, I'm an ecocentrist, so of course that's how I view things. But I get that there's a pragmatic part of this as well. But nonetheless, killing these baboons is not even an option on the table. Therefore, everything else should be explored before we even get to moving them. Never mind, we say, okay, we're going to kill them. It's not. And I think hurting baboons doesn't make any difference, because it just turns them into, it just makes them aggressive. And it makes them even more determined to sort of hold on to their power, if you understand, sort of their territory, to
Yes.
hold on to territory.
Yeah. So here's the things. Baboons are not territorial, although they do have home ranges. But the thing that I have always been fascinated about, and I truly am very fascinated by this, is the fact that for all the nastiness we've given to these animals, you started at the start of the podcast by saying how persecuted they are. And if I look at how persecuted they have been,
Yeah.
every single little body that goes to the vet is full of pellets or bullets or, some sort of projectile, birdshot, whatever. Um, but they never turn on people. If I was a baboon, I would be pretty darn angry by now, and I would probably, want to bite people. But if you look, just that recently, I was at the light industrial park in Kommetjie, and the workers were chasing the baboons away. Some of them had put out catapults, and some of them were starting to throw rocks. Look, the monitors did intervene very quickly, I will say that. But
Mm.
but the persecution of these animals is very, very intense. They're run over by cars, attacked by dogs, yet they don't turn on people. And the very, very, very few incidents of negative interactions with people have been when they've pushed people out of the way, maybe scratched people. But it is astonishing for me that for such sentient and such clever animals, that they have not become very, very aggressive. And I think very luckily for us that they've not become very aggressive, because they are extraordinarily strong. And of course, the males have got the teeth. But the way that we have treated them is just unconscionable. And for me, the fact that the authorities have failed in their mandates so thoroughly, we should be trying everything possible to make sure that they can live out their best lives in natural environments. And we should be doing everything possible to achieve that.
So, Jenny, what would you like to see done? Your list of priorities, and what would you like the rest of us to do? If we could get involved, I don't live anywhere near the Cape, unfortunately. I live in Joburg. So, but how could we, sort of help out and put pressure on the authorities to do the right thing for the baboons?
So, well, we are running a campaign at the moment, Baboon Matters and Beauty Without Cruelty South Africa, with our partners, Baboon Watch Western Cape, Green Group of Simonstown, Baboons of the South are with us, Baboon Management Western Cape is with us. And so we're running a big campaign, which is on the lines of no to killing, yes to solutions. And we are having a big march in Simonstown on Sunday. There is a petition being run by the Green Group, and what I really want people to do is make their voices heard. We have a very, very active campaign running across social media, on all social media platforms. People are writing to the mayor, they are writing to their ward councillors, and it's really, really important that your voice is heard, that the authorities know we do not want the baboons killed and we do want other solutions, because they seem to feel that the public will have a very short memory on this, and that if they kill the animals, we'll soon forget and move on. The sort of analogy being the next time the Springboks beat the All Blacks, the baboons will all be forgotten. So we need to make them understand that that is not the case, and we will have long memories, and we will not overlook these animals being killed. Um, we do want to see the solutions that they have spoken about for the last 20 years implemented, starting with appropriate waste management effectively enforced. I would like to see some of the strategic fencing that they've also been speaking about, because I think that would reduce attractants enormously. The light industrial park that I mentioned to you earlier, if that was inaccessible to the baboons, they wouldn't be darting across the busy road to get the food rewards. So I would like to see an implementation from the authority side, a serious implementation, because I listed for a colleague the other day all the different management plans, all the different meetings, all the different symposiums over 24 years. And here I am sitting with you, and yet very few of those solutions have actually, the mitigation is in place. So yeah, I would like them to actually put their money where their mouth is and actually do the things that they've been speaking about.
Right. Jenny, could you give us more information about you've got a special event coming up on the 19th of July. Would you please just give us more information about that and how people can contact you if they want to help or get involved?
So on the 19th of July, we are marching. It's a peaceful march arranged by Beat Without Cruelty and Baboon Matters and our partners. And we will be congregating at 10 o'clock at the Simonstown railway station, and then very peacefully marching through Simonstown to hand over our memorandum of concerns to a member of the JTT, and then dispersing. So it really is going to be peaceful. It's going to be very everybody standing together for the baboons and making our voices heard and seen. So that's the 19th in Simonstown at the railway station, meeting at 10 o'clock. To get in touch, it's always easiest, I think, just on our Facebook groups, commenting on our Facebook groups. My cell phone is the most overworked cell phone on the planet, so oftentimes getting hold of me by cell phone is sheer miracle, to be honest. So I think rather messaging via Facebook, Baboon Matters Facebook page is very good. Beauty Without Cruelty are very, very proactive in this, and our colleagues that I mentioned.
Well, I certainly won't be giving out your cell phone number. So
I think people would have a hard time getting hold of it. You just hear
okay.
it.
I know. So I mean, somebody gave out mine once. It's like, oh Lord, I woke up to like 500 messages. I was like, well, I'm changing my number now.
It's impossible. It's just impossible.
It is. It's absolutely impossible, Shay. So just Jenny, in conclusion, I mean, we have a lot of dispersing male baboons coming through the East Rand and
Yes.
Joburg and that, and we had a terrible, terrible incident a couple of months ago where kids from a school ran down Reagan, burnt him alive, necklaced him. I mean, it was the most deplorable thing I've ever seen in my entire life. I lost all faith in humanity when I saw what those kids did to that defenseless baboon who was just trying to get, to another troop. And I wrote an article, and I'm hoping I'm going to write another article. I'm hoping Sentience magazine will have an article. And if you could send us more information about the plight of the Chacma baboons in the Western Cape, I think it's very good for all of us to get involved. We might turn around and say it's not our area, but actually we are all liable and we are all responsible for our natural heritage in South Africa. And I feel very strongly that it's up to all of us to get involved and make sure the authorities do the right thing. So from my side, I'm going to start putting up some articles on my page and that sort of thing. Just for one last thing, is there not any value to possibly starting a petition? Does that not, have any effect on the political side of this issue?
There is a petition going, and it is available on the Green Group of Simonstown's page. So there is a petition people can sign, and one hopes that it will have value as well. I would just like to say, I don't live in Cape Town. I live outside of Cape Town in Swellendam now, and still doing with baboons all over South Africa. Baboon Matters helps wherever we can. And I'd just like to say, we hear a lot about the persecutions, but just recently, there have been a number of incidents where baboon mummies have been run over by cars and the babies are still alive. And people have gone to extraordinary lengths to, first of all, try and rescue the mummies, get the vet care, and then make sure that the babies get to place of safety or back to the troop. In both cases, we managed to get the babies back to the troop. So like you, I sometimes despair, particularly the ray gun incident and, when people shoot the baboons. And then when I look at my colleagues and I see how hard they're all working and members of the public, just going to really extraordinary lengths to help the baboons. And I think that if the authorities think it's going to be okay to kill these animals, they have seriously misread the room, because as frustrated as people get, and we understand why they get frustrated, nobody wants these animals to be killed. The percentage of people who really do is absolutely minuscule. So there's really, really good people out there who are working so hard. I think about the rehabbers. I think about the volunteers who are all putting in extraordinary hours. I think about people like Reno Engelbrecht, for example, who launched the legal campaign to hold the authorities accountable. People like Lorraine Holloway, who is on the ground every single weekend for years on end, helping educate. Extraordinarily good people doing their best for these baboons. So it's not all doom and gloom for them. But the good people need to stand up and make their voices heard. Otherwise, the minority, the very small minority, are going to win the day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with that sentiment. There are on the whole more people fighting to preserve our heritage and our wildlife than there are trying to kill them. So absolutely, and I've got to acknowledge that. So and I certainly need to make my voice louder. I was quite loud about these issues at one stage. I've become a little bit too quiet. So I think this is why I got hold of you. And I thought I really, really want to do this interview, and I really want to focus on this issue and try and bring some pressure to bear where it's necessary against the authorities, to try and help out on this issue. Any last message, any last thoughts you want to put to my listeners and to those who view my podcast?
Well, just the last thing I would like to say is that, since I've been doing this work, which is, I thought it was 30 years, but actually it's closer to 40. I'm getting to be a real old crone now. But everybody always tells me their best baboon story. And I would just love people, when they listen to this podcast, to think about their best baboon story and to think about the baboons with a lot of love and a lot of humor, because they are very humorous. They have a great joy of life. And such great love and affection, and they're real drama queens as well. The way they spat amongst each other, and it, I would just love everybody to think of them with their best baboon story, and with a lot of love and a lot of humor, and a lot of support, because that's what these little animals need right now, is love and support.
Yeah, we definitely need to reinforce the positivity
Yeah.
about baboons and about having them as part of our environment and that sort of thing. Benny, you're off. Thank you so much for giving me your time. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. And like I said, I will do what I can, and good luck with your march on the 19th. And let's hope the authorities do the right thing, because I'm certainly going to be writing to them, and I'm going to want some comment from the authorities and from Cape Conservation and that as well.
Thank
Thanks
you
for your
so much.
time, Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
To my listeners, thank you for joining me. If you found this discussion thought-provoking, help us keep the conversation going. Hit that follow button on Spotify, and don't forget to connect with me on X, formerly Twitter, and Facebook. Until next time, stay curious.